There are places on this planet we still don't understand, where pressure crushes metal and light has never reached, where human eyes have never seen, and where something else might still be watching. It began with a signal, not random, not mechanical, but moving, with weight, intent, and mass beyond estimation. November 12th, 2003, somewhere in the South Pacific, a classified sonar facility operated by the US Navy detects an underwater contact at a depth exceeding 10,000 meters, far below what any known creature can survive. Its speed, 32 knots, impossibly fast for something so deep. Its size, unmeasurable. The sonar simply overloaded. The event is logged under an unusual tag, UBC, Unidentified Biological Contact. No images, no follow-up, no debrief. The report disappears into archives sealed by protocol. But that contact was only the beginning. For decades, deep-sea hydrophones, placed across every major ocean trench, have picked up anomalies, massive echoes, rhythmic pulses, organic signatures that defy classification, and whispers among naval circles of something large, something alive, moving in the places light can't reach. They say it's pressure, they say it's whales, they say it's nothing, but some believe it's something ancient, something that once ruled the oceans, and perhaps still does. Because when you descend far enough, past the light, past the charts, past the noise of the modern world, the past doesn't sleep, it waits. For centuries, it was the stuff of legend, whispered by sailors, drawn on the edges of old nautical maps as enormous jaws with rows of teeth wider than a man's torso. But Megalodon wasn't mythology, it was real. Its scientific name was Carcharodontus megalodon, and by all available evidence, it was the most powerful predator that ever lived on Earth. It ruled the oceans for over 20 million years, appearing after the extinction of the dinosaurs and vanishing, or so we believe, roughly 2.6 million years ago. This wasn't just a large shark. Megalodon made the great white look like a minnow. Estimates suggest adults reached lengths of 15 to 20 meters. Some say even 25. Its bite force is believed to be over 40,000 pounds per square inch, strong enough to crush a small car. Fossils of whale bones show massive puncture wounds, the spacing between them too wide to match any known predator. And yet, for a creature of such scale, we've never found a single complete skeleton. Because sharks are mostly cartilage, not bone, all we have are teeth. Thousands of them, scattered across beaches, riverbeds, and even mountain ranges that were once underwater. But here's where it gets strange. Some of these teeth appear to be too well preserved, not fossilized, not ancient. Several recovered specimens have sparked debate due to their coloration and lack of mineralization, suggesting they're not millions of years old, but thousands, or less. Paleontologists disagree. Some claim the preservation is due to unique soil chemistry. Others argue it's misdating, that modern teeth somehow mixed with older layers. But then, how do we explain the reports? Throughout the 20th century and into the 21st, mariners from Australia, Chile, South Africa, and the Philippines have described seeing enormous shark-like creatures, far larger than a great white, with a distinctly thicker, wider head, a blunt snout, and most notably, massive triangular dorsal fins rising over the waterline like the sail of a ship. In 1918, Australian fisheries inspector David Stead recorded accounts from a group of shaken fishermen who refused to return to sea after encountering what they described as a white death. According to their report, a shark the size of their 50-foot trawler destroyed their fishing lines and circled the vessel with a tail like a timber beam. Stead believed them. These weren't superstitious villagers. They were hardened deep-sea men, and they were terrified. To this day, that report remains in Australia's public marine archives. But the story doesn't end there. As more oceans are scanned, as sonar records pile up, and as deep-sea drones begin capturing unexplained anomalies, one question keeps resurfacing. What if the monster that once ruled the ocean never left? In the remote silence of the South Pacific, deep beneath the surface where light cannot reach, a sound was captured that still has no explanation. The date was November 12, 2003, a classified US Navy hydroacoustic station, part of a vast underwater listening network known as SOSUS, Sound Surveillance System, recorded something it couldn't categorize. The signal came from a depth of approximately 10,200 meters, far below the range of any known marine animal or submarine. It lasted only 17 seconds. But it was unlike anything they had ever heard. It wasn't random, it wasn't mechanical, it moved, and it was massive. When analysts reviewed the spectrogram, what they saw stunned them. The frequency curve and resonance profile didn't match any known geological event. It wasn't an underwater quake, nor ice shelf movement, nor man-made sonar. It carried characteristics of a biological origin, organic vibration patterns, pitch variation, and directional propagation, suggesting the signal had come from a living creature. But the scale was incomprehensible. The estimated source size, extrapolated by acoustic strength, placed the object at over 50 meters in length. It was moving at 32 knots, roughly 60 kilometers per hour, far faster than any known marine organism of that size could sustain. For comparison, the blue whale, Earth's largest known animal, rarely exceeds 5 knots. The signature was tracked for over 80 nautical miles before it abruptly ceased. That's when the file was marked, Unidentified Biological Contact. And then, it disappeared. No public data, no follow-up, no official release. But as with many things hidden, it leaked, first through a whistleblower within the Navy's Oceanographic Command, then through independent oceanographers who began receiving incomplete waveform snippets from anonymous sources. Dr. Eliza Marlowe, a British marine biologist and deep-sea acoustics expert, was one of the first to speak out publicly. "If this signal is real," she said in a 2008 interview, "then we are dealing with an animal whose size exceeds any species we've cataloged. And if it's not real, then someone is faking sonar signatures at an intelligence agency level." Others came forward. A Chilean research vessel off the Juan Fernandez Ridge had recorded a similar anomaly in 1997, though theirs was dismissed as background tectonic noise. In 2011, a Canadian buoy near the Tonga Trench registered a matching frequency, again ruled inconclusive. All told, there were at least 6 known matches spanning 3 oceans over 2 decades, all quietly shelved, none officially acknowledged. And then came the patterns. Multiple analysts working independently discovered that these signals shared a strange consistency, a low-frequency harmonic signature not found in whales, fish, or geologic disturbances. They seemed to be emitted in intervals, pulsed, almost like sonar pings. Was it a form of communication, echolocation, or something else entirely? The implications were staggering. If a creature that size were alive today, how had it evaded detection? How could something so enormous leave no visual trace, no carcasses, no sightings, unless the sightings were already happening and being ignored? As speculation deepened, the scientific community split. Some dismissed the signal as equipment error or deliberate hoax. Others, however, began to quietly re-examine fossil records and sonar anomalies from past decades with fresh eyes. Suddenly, decades-old reports of giant shadows on submersible cameras, unexplained deep-sea pressure shifts, and mysterious pod disappearances took on new relevance. And always at the center of this mystery was the same chilling question: what made that sound? If sonar was the whisper, then the sightings were the scream. They came not from conspiracy theorists or urban legend fanatics, but from fishermen, sailors, oil rig workers, and military personnel, men and women who spent their lives on the sea. In 2009, off the coast of Western Australia, a Japanese shipping crew reported an encounter that would never make headlines. According to the declassified report, obtained through a Freedom of Information request, the vessel's lookout spotted a large, dark object breaching the surface. Initially dismissed as a pod of whales, the crew quickly realized something was wrong. The dorsal fin was enormous and alone. Radio logs described a single mass at least 20 meters long, surfacing for several seconds before submerging with a force that rocked the 200,000-ton freighter. The radar? Blank. 6 months later, in the Mariana Trench, a deep-sea drilling platform operated by a private European consortium logged an unidentified object moving vertically through the water column, faster than their instruments could track. The subsea elevator, suspended over 6,000 meters below, shook violently. 2 days later, a 4-inch thick titanium alloy cable was found severed. It had been rated to withstand pressures greater than those at the trench's floor. What could have sheared it? Reports like these don't make the evening news, but they pile up, quietly, persistently. In 2013, a U.S. Navy submarine conducting classified surveillance exercises in the Philippine Sea recorded a sonar contact that tracked the vessel for nearly 36 minutes. At first, it was dismissed as a shadow echo or rogue signal, but then it moved and kept pace. The object followed the sub at 28 knots, weaving in and out of passive sonar range without emitting any return sound of its own. Submarines are silent, but not invisible. This was invisible, and yet unmistakably real. The sonar technician later wrote in his private logs, "We weren't tracking it. It was tracking us." Still, no photos, no footage, just waveforms, frightened voices, and redacted reports. But not all sightings occurred in deep water. In 2017, off the coast of Chile, near Isla Mocha, an island long associated with maritime myths, a group of ecotourists reported a massive shadow swimming beneath their boat during a whale-watching trip. One described it as the size of a subway train. Another, a former marine biologist, said it moved with the heaviness of something too big to exist. Local fishermen had another name for it, El Fantasma Marino, the sea ghost. Legends about Isla Mocha date back centuries. The indigenous Mapuche people spoke of a sea creature large enough to swallow whales. Spanish colonists recorded tales of an eternal beast that prowled the coastline, attacking ships that ventured too close to the trench. It was always dismissed as folklore, until now. Because when these reports are cross-referenced with deep-sea seismic activity, migratory whale disappearances, and sonar anomalies, a chilling pattern emerges. These aren't isolated incidents, they're clustered, and they follow the same migratory routes that prehistoric megalodons are believed to have hunted along, from the coast of Peru, across the South Pacific, and up towards Southeast Asia. Coincidence or echo? To believe Megalodon still exists, you have to answer one question. How could something so massive stay hidden? The ocean is vast, but it is also heavily trafficked, mapped, and observed. Satellites scan its surface, sonar charts its depths, submarines patrol its trenches, and yet, we've mapped more of Mars than we have of our own seafloor. Over 80% of Earth's oceans remain unexplored. In the deepest regions, the hot oil zones beyond 6,000 meters, daylight has never touched the bottom. Pressures are crushing. Temperatures hover near freezing. It is a world alien to us, and it is perfect for something that doesn't want to be found. Marine biologists have long speculated about gigantism in the deep, a phenomenon where species grow to extreme sizes due to environmental factors like cold, pressure, and isolation. Giant squid were once myth. Today we know they exist, some over 40 feet long, colossal jellyfish, 6-foot amphipods, and sharks that glow in the dark, all discovered in just the last few decades. In 1976, the world was stunned when the first megamoth shark was captured, a creature so bizarre it was initially thought to be a hoax, and yet it had eluded detection for centuries. So, what if Megalodon didn't die, but migrated? What if, sensing extinction at shallower depths, due to changing temperatures, loss of prey, or competition with emerging species, it retreated into the dark? Some believe that Megalodon may have evolved, adapted, shrunk slightly perhaps, or changed its hunting patterns to feed on giant squid, deep-diving whales, or even scavenge seafloor detritus. But the biggest advantage? Silence. Unlike whales, which must surface to breathe, sharks are gill breathers. They don't need to break the surface. They don't make sound. They don't call, echolocate, or sing. They drift. They stalk. They wait. Some argue Megalodon couldn't have survived without detection. They point to the lack of carcasses, the absence of verified teeth, the silence of satellite imagery. But consider this. How often do we find whale remains? Despite thousands dying annually, most sink. Their bones scatter. Their bodies feed the abyss. Now, imagine a creature that hunts those bodies. In 2021, NOAA researchers recorded an unidentified sonar return during a study of whale falls near the Puerto Rico Trench. A massive object moved in from below. It didn't attack. It hovered, circling the decomposing whale, then descended out of range. The team logged it as unclassified biological mass, deep anomaly. They weren't allowed to pursue it. Not all science is public. Not all footage is released. And sometimes, not knowing is safer than explaining. If Megalodon still roamed the oceans, someone would have seen it. Someone would have said something, right? Maybe they already have. But What if we weren't meant to hear it? In 1997, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, recorded a mysterious ultra-low frequency sound from deep in the Pacific. They called it the bloop. It was organic in nature, powerful enough to be picked up by sensors over 3,000 miles apart. At the time, scientists said it resembled the signature of a living creature, but no known animal on Earth was large enough to produce it. When speculation exploded online, from deep-sea leviathans to possible megalodon signals, NOAA suddenly changed its explanation. They attributed the sound to ice quakes. No follow-up data, no raw files released, just a line in a report and silence. And that wasn't the only case. In 2003, a sonar operator aboard an Australian submarine in the Coral Sea recorded a fast-moving underwater contact estimated to be over 70 feet in length, moving at speeds above 30 knots. It wasn't a whale, it wasn't a submarine. When questioned, the Navy dismissed the contact as a system error. The file was quietly reclassified. In 2016, a documentary crew working near the Mariana Trench captured what appeared to be a massive finned silhouette passing behind their submersible at extreme depth. The footage went viral for 2 hours before being removed from most platforms. The production company later claimed the clip was mislabeled CGI test footage. No copy has resurfaced since, but people remember. A diver off the coast of Guam once claimed he saw an enormous silhouette glide beneath him, too slow for a whale, too large for any sub. On a remote Micronesian island, fishermen whispered about a black fin breaching the surface at dawn. In forgotten threads on message boards and old forums, the stories trickle in. Blurry, unverified, half-believed. But some are chillingly consistent. They speak of a blunt head, a mouth too wide, movements too smooth, and always that feeling, something ancient watching from below, a black shape the size of a bus moving silently beneath a ship, a bite radius too wide for any known shark, a fin cutting the waves in open sea, before vanishing. So, why the silence? Some suggest economic interests. If deep waters are declared unsafe, fishing industries collapse. Cruise lines lose passengers. Naval secrecy is compromised. Others think the truth is simply too disruptive. If a prehistoric apex predator still existed, one capable of surfacing anywhere, invisible to sonar, untethered by habitat boundaries, how would the world react? It wouldn't be wonder, it would be fear, the same fear that made sailors draw monsters in the margins of maps, or avoid entire regions altogether. And so, silence becomes strategy. A radar blip gets erased, a sighting becomes a whale. A body, if it ever floats, is claimed by currents before the press can arrive. But sometimes, something slips through. A report that doesn't get buried, a photo that doesn't get blurred, a scream that gets heard. And each time it happens, the same question rises. Not just in fringe circles, but in universities, naval briefings, even classified files. What if the ocean's greatest predator isn't extinct, just expertly hidden? For decades, whispers surrounded the vaults of military archives and oceanographic logs. Whispers of sightings never reported, missions quietly scrubbed from record, and sonar data sealed under classification. But in recent years, fragments began to surface. In 2013, a Freedom of Information Act FOIA request unearthed a declassified sonar event logged by the U.S. Navy near the Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the Mariana Trench. The document was redacted heavily, but one line stood out: unidentified biological echo. Length, indeterminate. Displacement, exceeds standard marine mass tables. No species listed, no follow-up, no explanation. Then came the leaked emails. In 2018, anonymous correspondence surfaced from inside a private marine research firm operating in the South Atlantic. The email referenced abnormal deep-sea migration patterns and included a blurry sonar image showing a large mobile shadow flanked by smaller marine life, all diverting course to avoid it. The email ended with a line, "If this is what we think it is, we're not prepared." The authenticity was never confirmed, but the silence from the firm was deafening. Their site was taken offline for restructuring, and the lead researcher quietly resigned. And then, perhaps the strangest coincidence of all, In 2020, NOAA and several international agencies abruptly canceled a scheduled deep-sea drone survey near the Kermadec Trench off New Zealand, citing unexpected mechanical failure. Yet days before the mission, a local news outlet reported fishermen spotting a massive black fin rising and submerging just offshore, describing it as twice the size of a killer whale. The article was pulled within 48 hours. And here's the question that won't go away. If all of this is coincidence, why does it follow the same shape? A strange contact on sonar, a blurry shape below, an official response, and then disappearance. The narrative never shifts, only the names. Some researchers now speak of sightline silence, the consistent absence of confirmed data in regions where anomalies have been reported, entire slices of the ocean where satellite images are blurred, sonar scans incomplete, or local testimonies dismissed out of hand. These zones of silence, from the South Pacific to the Indian Ocean, align suspiciously well with areas where Megalodon fossils have been found in the past. Coincidence or containment? A few bold voices even suggest that international maritime treaties, the ones that restrict access to certain deepwater corridors, have less to do with geopolitics and more to do with what lies beneath. They may never admit it, but every shadowy record, every locked file, every lost expedition draws us back to the same place. A place where data goes dark, where pressure crushes machines, where the teeth of history may still swim, unseen. The ocean holds its secrets tightly. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the deepest parts of our own planet. Our satellites can scan continents, trace tectonic shifts, and predict solar storms. Yet, in the black silence below 10,000 meters of water, truth becomes speculation. Steel buckles, signals fail, and stories disappear. The tale of Megalodon has always hovered at the edge of that unknown, a creature both scientifically real and mythically vast, a shark that left behind fossils, legends, and fear. But what makes this story endure isn't the skeletons we haven't found, or the blurry sonar shapes, or even the fireball of conspiracy around missing data. It's the pattern: a fisherman's tale in 1918, a sonar ping in 2003, a black fin in 2020. Unconnected, unverified, unexplained, and yet they all orbit the same idea, that something ancient, something massive, something not yet extinct still lurks below. Skeptics argue it's fantasy, an illusion of scale, of fear, of wanting to believe in monsters. They point to biology, to the limits of ecosystem sustainability, to the millions of years that have passed since Megalodon was supposed to vanish. But belief doesn't need confirmation to persist. And fear thrives in silence. The ocean gives us silence in abundance. It swallows metal and memory, echoes and engines. It leaves only currents and questions. And that's what makes this story powerful. Not proof, but the absence of it. Because what if extinction is not a moment, but a mistake? What if survival, in the deepest corners of the world, means simply not being seen? We've explored Mars. We've mapped the surface of Pluto. But our own oceans, 71% of the Earth's surface, remain mostly uncharted. Entire mountain ranges lie submerged. Deep-sea trenches stretch farther than any canyon. There is more unexplored terrain below sea level than above it. So, tell me, if something did survive the extinction event, if it adapted, moved deeper, changed, how would we ever know? What if the reason we haven't seen Megalodon is because it doesn't want to be seen? What if the legends, the sightings, the sonar anomalies aren't relics of the past, but warnings? Because in a world built on data, on evidence, on certainty, the one thing that frightens us more than the unknown is the possibility that we were wrong, that it never left, that it still swims beneath the wake,